Oftentimes, people discuss certain cultural events. Usually, something will happen in the world, and people give their different opinions on it. Usually, once those discussions are about completely different cultures, and nations, and rule sets, what would usually happen is that someone, sooner or later, will get into morals and ethics, and they will argue that what another nation does is all right because that is simply what they do over there. This can even be applied to things as simple as arranged marriages or eating cats and dogs, anything along those lines. This would be an example of something we would call cultural relativism. Cultural relativism is the idea that what is morally permissible, what is okay to do, is determined by what the majority of the society at large agrees upon. Cultural relativism is not the statement that all cultures have different moral views. That's just accepted. Everyone knows every different culture has different moral views. But cultural relativism is more so the idea that ethics are culture bound rather than universal, which is not what we want. So if a culture approves of an action within cultural relativism, then that action is not wrong, so it is morally permissible to take said action. If a culture disapproves of an action, then it's wrong and not morally permissible to take that action, so on and so forth. There are some arguments for cultural relativism. An example is the idea of tolerance, that you should just accept whatever comes with, a country's morals or culture, just accept any and everything. At the very least, be super tolerant. The problem is no culture believes that any and everything should be accepted. No culture is like amazingly tolerant. But even tolerance in of itself contradicts cultural relativism because it kind of requires that you treat things more universally. The idea that ethics can be universal, and cultural relativism specifically believes that ethics is culture bound and relative. And then disagreements. You know, Usually with disagreements, you have one side and another. Um, Cultural relativism is like, well, cultures disagree, which is true. But usually there is a right side, or at least a side with better arguments when it comes to cultural relativism. Usually that's just how it is. So when it comes to certain moral debates between cultures, usually one of them is going to have a more ethical viewpoint, more morally correct, morally permissible viewpoint. Then you have the arguments against, which just break down the arguments against it. Cultural relativism are true, then the majority would always be correct, is one argument that is made for it. But if we were to critique that argument, then, besides it made of people, and people can be wrong. Um, Again, if cultural relativism were true, then people criticize the majority views are wrong, but the majority can be wrong. It is possible for a group of people and the majority of that society to agree on something that causes harm, which would be morally wrong. And then what's ethical would be defined by basically opinion polls. The idea is that you could probably just take a census, just see what everyone agrees with, and just decide that is what our morals are going to be. So, oh, everyone agrees that such and such thing is correct, regardless of actually analyzing whether or not that is morally permissible. And then lastly, there'd only be cultural change and a change in opinion rather than ethical and moral progress. So say the society believes something they change their moral beliefs to something that we would consider more morally correct. For them, it'd just be a change in opinion under a cultural relativist mindset or a society that abides by that way of thinking. So progress becomes more of an opinion change rather than actual progress. So the next time your friends argue about different things that cultures do, pay attention to see if someone uses cultural relativism in their argument, if they try to appeal to that argument saying that's just what they do or something along those lines, because I guarantee you more than likely they will. So the next time you're in an argument like that, just look out for it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching.